Welcome to Kicking Ass and Taking Names, the Business Owners Empowerment Podcast. I'm your host, Marlon Griffith Esquire. Join us on this podcast journey as we help you break free from the grind and get your business to work for you. We will delve into impactful conversations with business owners, corporate leaders, professional service providers, and industry innovators that will provide you with insights and actionable strategies that will transform your entrepreneurial path, boost your success, and put you in control of your business journey so you can kick ass and take names. My fellow entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, and business owners, we have made it to episode 17 of Kicking Ass and Taking Names, a business owner empowerment podcast. Failing forward, growing a multimillion-dollar business, a conversation with Paul Seabrook, Esquire. Paul Seabrook is the owner of Seabrook Law Offices located in San Jose, California. In this conversation, he discusses how he grew his law firm from a solo practice to a multi-million-dollar success by embracing the maxim failing forward. You'll learn how he scaled his business while attaining and preserving a work-life balance through pivotal hiring decisions, including replacing himself in the business and adding an in-house CEO, which fundamentally changed his role in the business. Paul's journey offers invaluable insights on how to grow smartly and getting the right team in place to handle the complexity of a growing business. Paul Seabrook has built a distinguished reputation as a leader in family law and a trailblazer in the legal profession. His journey from educator to attorney exemplifies a steadfast commitment to serving others and creating meaningful change in the community. Before embarking on his legal career, Paul dedicated 5 years to teaching in Santa Clara County, where he inspired and mentored students, fostering their growth and success. Motivated by a desire to make a broader impact, Paul pursued a new challenge and enrolled in the University of San Francisco School of Law in 2007. Graduating in 2010, Paul immediately set out to make his mark in the legal world by opening his own firm in Seattle, Washington, where he skillfully navigated the complexities of bankruptcy and divorce law. In pursuit of family and community ties, Paul and his loved ones returned to California to plant roots and build his future. In 2020, he relaunched his firm and established Seabrook Family Law in San Jose, California, where he decided to focus exclusively on family law. Under Paul's leadership, Seabrook Law Offices has flourished, which began as a modest operation with Paul and one paralegal, grew into a thriving multi-million-dollar practice recognized for its excellence and rapid growth. The firm's dedication to serving its clients and community earned it a place on the prestigious Law Firm 500, fastest growing law firms list in both 2022 and 2023. This achievement underscores Paul's ability to combine entrepreneurial acumen and a profound dedication to his clients' well-being. Paul attributes much of the firm's success to his unwavering focus on people, both the clients it serves and the talented team it cultivates. By prioritizing clear communication, compassionate advocacy, and innovative problem solving, Seabrook Law Offices has become a trusted resource for family navigating divorce, child custody, spousal support, and other family matters. Paul's story is one of perseverance, vision, and heart. As always, I hope you enjoy episode 17. And please feel free to reach out on us on our social media channels and let us know what you think. Until next time, you keep kicking ass and taking names. This episode's guest is Paul Seabrook, founder and owner of Seabrook Law Offices in San Jose, California. About 15 years ago, Paul started his own business, his own law practice with himself and an assistant. And today he has multiple employees. He's no longer doing the day to day, and he now has a multi-million-dollar business. We're going to talk about Paul's journey and how he's gotten to where he is today. How you doing, Paul?
I'm doing good, Marlon. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Our focus is family law,
Yeah, we do
right?
divorce and family law, everything related to that world.
Okay. So tell me, you have built a distinguished reputation in the San Jose area as a leader in family law and a trailblazer in your legal profession out there. Tell me,
If
how
you say
did
so, yeah.
humility get you very far? So tell me, Paul, you didn't start off as a lawyer. You were a school teacher.
Yep. Yeah, I was a history teacher here in the South Bay for a couple of years, Milpitas High School, and felt like I think after about 5 years of teaching, I kind of decided I wanted a new challenge, and went to law school at the University of San Francisco, and when I got out, I started trying to open my own law firm.
Yes, you went straight into. You went. I think you went up to Seattle
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you open up your own. You put your shingle out, as we say, and open up your own firm. And you were doing family law and bankruptcy.
Back then, I was doing bankruptcy and some estate planning. It actually took me a while to get to family law. Um, so yeah, that was quite a journey. Because up in Seattle, I remember I got a job interview.
Hmm.
I was trying to get a job, and this was 2010 when the economy wasn't doing so hot,
Right.
and it was for an associate attorney making 45,000 a year,
Hmm.
and there was a guy with 20 years of experience applying for that job,
Wow.
and he didn't get it, and that kind of said, okay, well, I'm in a tough market here. I'm going to have to
Hmm.
go find something to eat. And so out to the forest I went, opened my own business and failed, and opened another one and failed, and, you know, fail forward. That's my motto.
Now, it's interesting that you made two very big decisions in your career. Um, One in 2010, and again, the market was awful.
Yeah.
And you made a big decision in 2020, and we all know what happened in 2020,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
But we're going to get to that decision in 2020. But tell me, you just said, did you open up your own practice and you failed?
Oh, yeah.
Well, tell me, what how did you fail, and what lessons did you learn from that?
I mean, to run a business, you got to have things working. You got to have all things working.
Mm.
And, you got to be able to get clients, and you got to be able to get serve clients, and you've got to be able to make it all happen, and it's just sort of the learning process of how do you go about trying to figure all this stuff out. I think
Hmm.
at that point I was still focused on trying to learn how to get some basic marketing in, so that you could that was the struggle, and then just all parts. I've just had to learn so much. I never thought being a business owner would provide so many opportunities for growth and learning.
And so, as you went through that learning process, and obviously not getting the kind of revenues you were looking for, what steps did you take?
Well, so after that interview, I where I decided I was gonna I found a coach, and I went through a program with him, and he kind of went through the basics, just sort of a 90-day course, and so I became aware of all the different parts of the law firm that I had to be able to manage, and 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 so I just I started to study that,
Mhm.
and that's, just bit by bit, you know, every I try to improve my knowledge and experience on every
Sure,
aspect.
sure. Now, in those early days, what if anything kind of really um, jumped out at you as that something that you really needed to get a grasp of?
I think sometimes as an attorney, you take too much of the client's problems on your own shoulders.
Mm,
You have to be able to take care of yourself. You have to be
mm,
able to, have some boundaries. And I think that was really tough for me,
mm,
because I remember I would do a bankruptcy. I did a bankruptcy for some folks, and I gave them this price that I had no, it was so low, and at the end of it, they were really unhappy with me, and
mm,
it was shocking to be in a situation where you thought you were doing something nice for somebody,
mm.
and that you anticipated that it would be, you know something, you're trying to help people,
Right, right.
and to go through that was one of the big learning experiences. Is you need to do your best to serve your clients, but you also need to
Yes.
make sure that you don't lose yourself as you're out there trying to find a way through this.
I know. I mean, often, lawyers, get a bad rap, and sometimes deservedly so. But many of us, we sometimes take on that superhero complex
Yeah.
and want to solve our clients' problems, and it can be very wearing on you. So how did you deal with that? How did you learn to separate um, and detach, if I can say, from each client's personal dilemma?
Well, I think you go through it. You're learning about business and learning about law. Sort of, there's just no way around it. You go through it yourself. You're like, okay, let me see if I can learn something from
Mm,
this. And yeah, just watching other attorneys, and the way they operate, where they're
mm-hmm,
working 70, 80, 90 hours a week, and
mm-hmm,
not taking care of themselves or their family.
mm-hmm,
And it was really important to me. I remember, one of the, memories I have that has lived with me is back in 2012. My son was born in January, and I was working these long hours, and I came home on a Saturday after working 15 hours, and it was a Saturday night about 9 o'clock, and I remember my son Jack um, looking at me like I was a stranger,
mm,
like he didn't. And I think that was a huge turning point for me.
mm-hmm.
And I just said, okay, I can't do this. I can't be a stranger to my kid. And even I've sacrificed, financially in order to spend time. It's just more important to me to have that
Sure.
relationship than to try to make more money, or you know, stay up working for
Sure.
free for clients. That's what I do at 5 o'clock. You sit there, and if somebody wants me to work on something, I'm open to it. But it's okay. It's my client or my kids, and my family. Like you gotta put. You can't be everything to everybody.
Every time.
Yeah.
Right. Understood. So besides adjusting or modifying your own personal behavior, what did you do from a business perspective to help give yourself more time to spend with your family?
Yeah, that's where you sort of, like I've tried to engineer this business in a way that, you know, where my staff can provide me with what I need within the working hours, and and it's really interesting because I find, I've hired some attorneys and I've fired some attorneys, and some attorneys have moved on, and same thing with paralegals. And a lot of times you're interviewing people for a position who have this attitude, that they need to work nights and weekends in order to, that's just the way it's done in
Mm-hmm.
law. And it's, sometimes you have to beat some of that out of them and say, no,
Mm,
no, 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 no. We have operating hours, and we go outside of them if we have to, but that should not be the norm.
mm,
Because like, if as an attorney or a paralegal, if you're burned out, how useful are you to your clients?
right.
Not,
And how useful are you to your family?
right, right. I mean, it's not good for anybody. Nobody wins
Right.
if people are facing burnout. And so
Right.
the whole thing is, engineering the business so that my employees can get what they need, and they can give me what I need, and that it all kind of, the clients get what they need. And that's kind of what we're looking for. That's where it's at.
Right. So when you were in the Seattle area in 2010, and you how large did you build your firm up before you ultimately moved to San Jose?
Um, it was just me and an assistant up there,
Okay.
mostly me.
Okay.
Um, yeah, because I could never get enough, and then um, I ended up taking a job up in Seattle, and then I got a job offer down in California, and
Mm-hmm.
and, and moved. And then, but even as I was working for other firms, I was looking to launch, and I relaunched this one in 2016.
Right. So this is like the failure that you were speaking of earlier in this during our conversation, is that
Yeah,
you weren't really getting enough uh, clients, and you realized that you had to go get a job basically,
yeah, yeah,
um, while you continue to, but you never stopped. From what I'm hearing, you never stopped what your actual dream was to doing what you're doing now, owning your law firm.
yeah, yeah.
So then you
Always.
said you relaunched in 2016. What did that look like? What was the?
Yeah, yeah. An acquaintance of mine purchased a law firm,
Mm-hmm.
and he was doing family law, and that the law firm he purchased had some bankruptcy cases. And so he's like, "Hey, Paul, I can help you start your law firm if you take these bankruptcy cases off my hand." And that's when
Mm-hmm.
I kind of started in again. Like, that was sort of a launching point.
And that was helpful because now you had a like a pipeline of cases that you can work
Yes,
on.
yeah, that was it. It started with about 30 cases, so that gave me the confidence that I'd be able to, kind of get going.
Okay. So and you then and then it and then let's how you that was still in the Seattle area, or you now down in California?
No, yeah, I was in San Jose already.
Now you're down in San Jose. And in 2020, you made yet the next. I looks to me like the next major move in your career is you reopened, or I guess you should say, reopened your current law firm, and you decided just to focus on one area of law.
Well, there was a transition period. Okay, so
Okay.
bankruptcy, if you recall, 2016 through 2018, the economy was really doing well, and bankruptcy was really slowing down. And so I decided I was going to kind of move into family law, and I found out I liked it a lot better than bankruptcy.
Mm-hmm.
And so over the course of about a year and a half, I kind of transitioned, into family law, and that's when I found I really started to take off.
Okay. Okay. And then and then, then you decided to just focus on family law.
Yeah, yeah.
And what did you do? How did you build your firm now with a focus on family law?
Um,
And let's talk about it from a because we all know this. We have the seven parts of a business, and couple we know that very well, don't
we
we,
know
Paul?
that, yeah.
So let's talk about your your people, right? When
Right.
did you often you know your business your company now is grown and you have multiple employees, tens of employees now working for you. But you have to start with one. How did that begin?
Well, I found a paralegal who, it was me and a paralegal, and we were rocking and rolling, and we were signing up clients, and then I made this. I had more clients than I could work on, and the very next hire was an attorney, and
Mm,
I got some advice to hire an experienced attorney versus an inexperienced one. And I think that's one of the things that really jumped the
mm.
law firm is getting a senior attorney on board who took cases and ran with it so I could focus on marketing and sales and the other aspects of the business.
So as we say, that move of hiring a senior attorney was what we say you kind of replaced yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
And,
yeah, when I did that, and then the next month, like best month ever, you know what I mean? Like
yes.
that's where you're like, oh, okay. And it was my easiest month ever, so
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
was.
Because would you agree with me then, Paul, by making that one decision to hire a senior attorney in your situation, you literally went from working for your business to being able to work on your business.
Yeah. As soon as I could find another attorney, I hired another attorney, and then it just sort of kept going from there. Not to say I
Yeah.
haven't had problems, because
Of course.
we
Hmm.
we grew really fast. But we kept going. It kept
Okay.
going.
So let's focus on the marketing aspect because now you were focusing on working on your business.
Yeah.
So what were you doing? What was now the owner who was working on his business? What were you doing every day?
Most of it's sitting there trying to, move through some, you do your networking. So you try to, make sure that you're out there with a bunch of contacts that can, generate referrals and help your clients in the areas they
Sure.
serve. And then, trying to learn a little bit more about what could be some effective online digital marketing. That was a big part of it, is trying to,
Hmm.
go find some folks who need some help.
So you were really looking into the different marketing channels to try to increase your client base.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
And yeah, most SEO and all the things, Yelp, all there's so
Sure.
many ways
So
to create
So were
leads.
you using anyone to help you with this, like any outside companies or individuals, or were you just kind of Googling it and figuring it out yourself?
I used some agencies.
Okay,
I wasn't smart enough to figure that stuff out. And I've been through a
hmm,
few, some ups and some downs with these marketing
sure.
agencies. Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to grow fast. I wanted, so I tried to find some people who could help me.
And now, did you? What was your experience with those companies that you were using to help you with your marketing? Was it a situation where you like just gave them the keys and say, "Hey, run with it," or were you monitoring what they were doing and have certain expectations of results from what they were doing?
I was monitoring it. It wasn't like just okay, go do it.
Hmm.
Um, but that's where it's sort of one of the things that I ended up learning is it was hard for me to be able to hold those marketing agencies to account
Mm,
because you don't
hmm.
really know what you don't know.
Right.
And so when you look at something like online digital marketing, how do you know what they're if what they're doing is working, and how do you not know? That was a real challenge for me. And actually, you know, you find that across the board. You know, when you
Sure.
start talking about human resources, or you start talking about marketing or sales, or your legal team, and finding ways to make sure they're doing their job, or if you're operations, like the intake thing. Like you've got to be able to figure out if people are doing the job the way they need to be doing their job, and that's
Hmm.
been
Hmm.
that's been a real challenge.
It's I can share it. With you as a business owner, as business owners, is coming up with metrics, things you can measure the performance by that is objective and not subjective.
Right.
And some of these, third party vendors or what have you, they're very good at their presentation,
Yeah.
and even very good at the weekly and the monthly contact,
And the
right?
reports they give you,
The
right?
reports they give you, all of those things, and you don't know what the hell you're really looking at, but the nice graphs and everything like that, and it looks good.
Looks good.
It looks good,
Looks
and you say,
good,
okay,
but
I keep paying for it.
I'm supposed to be getting more, and then they point the finger at something else, and the other people point the fingers, and trying to figure out whether or not
Yeah,
you're getting what you need from
you're
everybody.
getting, you're
And
getting what
all
you need. And I think that I and see if you agree with me, that I think that often when we hire these folks, third party vendors, we some of us just kind of give them the key, is what I call it, right? We kind of
right.
just defer. You're the expert, have the expertise, and you just kind of defer to them, and then let them do what they do. Um, and we kind of turn off and move on to something else, and we don't really even know if we having a return on the investment. We
It's
might even know what the return on the investment is. We just want more business.
right, right. And that goes with your vendors, that goes with your employees and your clients. I mean, it's rough. It's because you got to know something to be able to hold them to account. And if you
Hmm.
can't figure that all out, then it's not easy. There's a whole lot you have to learn.
Yeah, yeah. So, can we go a little bit more into that process, though? And I'm kind of focusing right now on. We'll get to the employees in a minute, but I'm kind of focusing on the marketing aspect, right? Because this is really how your business grew. Because you really started focusing on bringing more business. Because now you're able to work on the business, and you were hiring attorneys and paralegals to do the work that were now coming in the door,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Um, did you ever did you ever really learn how to hold these third party vendors accountable? And if the answer is no, that's fine.
It's 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 I've been getting some help. So that's one of the
Right.
things I found is that um when I kind of went past three attorneys, kind of I felt like I needed somebody who would be sort of a director of marketing, somebody who would be sort of helping me out in operations. And with a growing business, I've we kind of got into trouble with some of the people, where you know we didn't necessarily have the knowledge or the skills to be able to figure all this stuff out. And when you bring on those costs where you've now got people earning salaries who are not generating revenue,
Mm-hmm.
and you're all of a sudden your business gets complicated. You go from a pretty simple business to a pretty complicated business pretty quickly. And so I've had to go hunt people who and find people who can help me find the problem and then find the solution.
It's a saying, and you know this saying very well. Um, the person that you are to grow a business from, say, 100,000 to 1 million in revenue, It's not the same person you have to be to grow a business from 1 million to 2 million in revenue,
Right.
and on and on and on. It's not
Yeah.
this because it's not the same business anymore,
No. No, it's
right?
not.
And often you may not be equipped yourself personally with what's required to grow your business to the next level. And I think that's what you're saying, Paul, right?
That is. That is. I've had to go through a lot. I've learned. I've made. I just continue. That's where like I said earlier. Failing forward is what I've. Um, so many. It's just this lifelong learning process. You
It
get to.
is.
I think. It's crazy because I think that's where it's being able to reflect on yourself and this business that I've created. um I've known other business owners who run into trouble, and they'll blame other people, they'll blame their vendors, they'll
Hmm.
blame their employees, they'll blame their clients, they're anybody but themselves. And I think it's kind of been part of me is to take responsibility for what I've created, and always trying to learn from the experiences you go through. Because there's a lot to learn.
Yes, it is. So it's two things about that, right? It's and you talked about holding your vendors and employees and others accountable. And I think you agree with me that as a business owner, you have to first learn how to hold yourself accountable. And that can be difficult.
Yeah, yeah.
That can be very difficult, right?
That P&L is a pretty good accountability tool. I think when you look at your P&L, um, it's all the consequences are right there for you.
Yes. Yes, it is, and hopefully more people are looking at their P and L. If you listen to my podcast, you look at that P and L consistently, not just once a quarter. It's
No, 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 no.
consistent.
Yeah,
But the other thing, and you kind of alluded to this about failing forward, is that you recognize, but when you hold yourself accountable, I think you recognize that there's so much that you don't know, right? And like you said before, you don't know what you don't know,
right.
but what you do have the power to do is to hire people or we engage people who do, and
Yeah,
you did.
I did, and it's a different feeling when you have people you can trust
Mm-hmm.
to take care of what they're supposed to take care of. It's
Mm-hmm.
a different feeling. Your business, you can get a lot easier sleep at night. I remember one conversation I had with a former employee. Um, she sat me down and she dialed up 14 problems that she
Wow.
saw in my business. And I agreed with her that every problem, every problem that was identified by her was a problem. And at the end of the meeting, she asked me, so, hey, like, what do you want to do, Paul? And she had no solutions. And
Mm-hmm.
that was a tough time because as a business owner, you need solutions. You know, you need somebody to be able to help you solve problems, and that's where like I found somebody who can help.
Right.
The person I found to come in, my CEO Janelle, she's didn't. I mean, she found solutions for those 14 problems, and then she found 50 more problems, and you know, just started working on fixing them all.
And I think, but but before you got to Janelle, right, and brought her in, you actually used a program as like a community that was, and that's kind of where we connected because we were part of the same a program. It's
Yep.
focused on law firm owners and helping them. advising them how to better run their business.
Right. Right.
Um, what was your experience with that program? I mean, what did it do as far as it related to helping you as you were working on your business?
Yeah, I think when in 2019 is when I joined. That was right when I was kind of transitioning full time into family law. I had, um, you know, I had known about that program for a long time, and I had been studying all this stuff, and I felt like I had me and a paralegal, and we were, things were working, and I knew I didn't know how to get past me and a paralegal. I
Mm.
didn't know. I didn't know
You
how
didn't
to
know how
get
to
past
grow.
it, and I knew I didn't know. So
Mm.
yeah, that coaching program has been very helpful. Don't think I'd be here without him.
Yeah. And I think what you just said is so important because I actually related. I can relate to that, right? Where you kind of know you're at a certain point or place, and you almost maybe use the word stuck, if that's the right word to use, and like you just don't know how to get past.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know you want to get past, and you just don't know how to get past. And that's where others, they are organizations and programs and coaches out there to help you, the business owner, get past where you're stuck, right?
yeah,
But just like with everything else, you got to know how to hold any, as I say, any company or individual that you write a check to, right? As it relates to your business, you have to be able to hold them accountable. You have to understand what is it that they're supposed to be providing for you.
right.
Some things are obvious as far as it relates to numbers, right? And certain metrics that are obvious or tangible metrics. And other things are more internal. Because I remember you used this term, sleep better at night.
Right. Well, I think once like what I found is that once
Mm-hmm.
my law firm got up over 2 million, I'm sitting there and um, I felt like I needed help.
Yeah.
The coaching program is, a few hours a month for different parts, and I felt like I needed more time. Somebody's got to be here working on this full time, and I
Yes.
think that like, so that's just the coaching that we got. I found it. I still find it to be helpful, but
Mm-hmm.
you got that's where like when you bring on an administrative side of your business, your business is now complex, and you better
Yes.
have somebody who knows what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who is capable.
Somebody who's capable.
Yeah,
Exactly. Because as we said earlier, what it takes to get from A to B is not what it's going to take to get from B to
yeah,
C.
yeah. I
And
know a lot of people. You get, like using that program. I know a bunch of people have gotten into this $2 to $3 million range, and then fewer people have gotten 5 to 8 million. In
mm-hmm.
terms of revenue, and it's
Mm-hmm.
you've got to be able to first take care of the clients, take care of just do take care of the employees, and make sure
Mm-hmm.
that it all makes sense. And that's where if you don't have people who know what they're doing, you will have trouble.
Yes. And you have to be willing to spend the money on people who know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And so you got to the point where you were having, and I put the words to it, basically like a fractional services,
Right.
your
Yeah.
fractional C-suite. So you had a fractional CEO, you had a fractional CFO, and other fractional services, correct?
Yep. And it was
And
just
then you
they knew what
decided,
they knew what they were doing, but like 3 hours, 4 hours a month, it's like inadequate.
that's right. You grew to the point where you needed more than just 3 to 4 hours a month from each one of these
Hmm.
particular services.
Yeah.
And one of the decisions that you made of all of the fractional folks, you decided to bring in house a CEO.
Yep. Yep.
And
That was sort of right around that discussion where the person I had working for me was like, "Here's your problems, Paul. Why don't you go get an HR degree and get 10 years of experience in HR, and then you'll be able to figure out what this HR solution is going to be." You know what I
hmm
mean? Like it was.
yeah,
I looked at it and I'm like, "Listen, I need help here," and
right,
that's it's a different story now. Where
sure.
you look at some of the things, some of the information that's being given to me now. It's just so much better.
Tell me, how is that process now? Now that you have a in-house, and I'm not sure if you what title you give Janelle, but she's in essence is she's in essence is the CEO of your business, and and I still see you have a managing attorney that's not you. You're an owner.
Yeah,
You have paralegals and associates working.
yeah.
So tell me now, what does your role look like now?
You know, right now, like I help out like in sales. So that's kind of an enjoyable thing for me. So I'm helping out in sales, when I can. I'm in the meetings, where we've got marketing meetings and attorney meetings and sales meetings and management meetings. So I'm in a bunch of meetings and I'm helping out in sales and then, looking at the financials.
That's right. So you get your reports, and now over the course of particularly the last 5 years or so, you really know how to read those reports.
Yeah, yeah. Definitely be able to spot, oh, I got a good bookkeeper last year.
Ha ha.
I got a good bookkeeper
Right.
and that was good.
That was good. And now you're able to spot certain trends, whether positive or negative,
Yep.
and if the negative ones, you can cut them off at the pass, as we say.
Yep. You see, you get your document and like, okay, what happened here? What happened
hmm
here? Why did this happen? Oh, okay.
hmm
Like you figure out, what's happening in your
hmm
business and you're able to keep your finger on the pulse of sort of what's going on.
Sure. So in 2019, 2020 was you and a paralegal. So it's me, you were the one responsible for basically all of the legal work that was required to be done by a lawyer, right? And now we in 2025. How much legal work do you do?
Um, I think I've
Be
billed
honest.
2 hours this year.
Say again.
I've billed 2 hours this year
This
to
year.
client. Yeah. So
So
nothing.
you are now truly, I call you. You're like the owner of a Chick-fil-A or a McDonald's. Is
Yeah, I
that
mean, we're still getting
you
there. I
don't
mean,
cook one burger.
like, my attorneys come to me, and they want some strategic thinking, of course, and I don't bill my clients for that. Um, and during case reviews, making just kind of making sure that the work is going, so, answering questions, coming up with strategy. I'm still busy. I'm still busy. I have not gotten to the point now where I'm just this true owner where I could take a month off and everything would be running smoothly. But we're getting there.
You're getting there, but you are you're still busy. I didn't ask you if you weren't busy. I'm sorry, because I see, and I know we all struggle with this, right? Because we feel like we have to be doing some production, like that's because we spent almost our entire lives producing something, and it's a certain level of value that we put to that, our own individual personal value. So that's one of those changes that we make, right? When we're producing individually producing less, it doesn't mean that we're giving less value, because in
No,
fact, what you are now doing is because of the way you've now run your firm and built your firm, you're now able to help way more families in need in San Jose than you ever would be able to do, would have been able to do if it was just you and your paralegal.
absolutely. I mean,
And that's your value.
and
That's the
sometimes
value.
the clients come in and they're like, "Hey, can you work on my case?"
Sure.
And you have to, you have to tell them like, look, you really don't want me. I'm I'm looking at so many things going on in my business that anytime I start thinking about having to take a case on, there's you can't give it the attention it needs. My attorneys and paralegals have one job: take care of the clients. They don't
Mm-hmm.
have to worry about all this other stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so I think we can help more people, and I think we do a better job, because it's just nice having your attorney not have to worry about all these other things that go along with running a business.
That's right. Right. Your role is to provide them with everything they need to serve the clients
Right.
in the ideal ultimate way. That's your role now,
That's what I want. Yeah.
right? As opposed to you yourself working directly with the clients.
Yeah. Yeah. And you've been
Right.
there, where you're
Right.
back then, you're in a meeting with your client, and you got court coming up,
Mm-hmm.
and so your attention is on your client and your court, okay, and then
Right.
their court and their issues, but you know you've then got to make sure, okay, where's the next client coming from, okay,
Mm-hmm.
what about all the other aspects of the business
Yeah.
that feed into this, and so yeah, I think it's I'm more comfortable, with serving my clients by having people who are solely dedicated
That's right.
to taking care of
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. And it's a it's an emotional and mental transition. It is
Yeah,
when you're having others are the ones who are um, working directly with the clients, and it's not you.
yeah,
It's a transition.
it is. Yep.
But like I said, I always say this: everybody uses Amazon, but no one expects Jeff Bezos to be delivering the package,
Right. That's
right?
exactly right. And
And you get your business to the
clients can come
point
to
where
me if there's a problem, and we have to, sometimes there are problems, and we deal with them.
hmm
But yeah, I think the way I have it set up, when you start talking about how much work actually has to be done, for the clients and for the business, it's too much,
yes,
and that's where, and, particularly with the kind of balance I'm hoping to strike
sure,
in my personal
sure,
life.
sure. Well, you've come a long way, Paul. You've come a long way, and I'm sure that now your two kids they recognize and know exactly who you are, right?
I think so. I think so.
Good,
Yeah.
good. We've got to that point in our conversation, and I do this with every one of my guests. So, yeah, you're being put on the spot, but everyone before you gets put on the spot. If
Okay.
it's three lessons that you will want to share, or things that you've learned that you'll want to share with my audience, fellow business owners, what would those three things be?
Um. All right. That is on the spot. Um. I think for me, if let's go ahead and say that my wife wanted to move to Texas. Okay, shut down your law firm. We're going to Texas, and you're going to open a law firm over there. When when I get that law firm, to when you need that administrative help, the people who are going to be doing operations and marketing, and you're going to all of a sudden have overhead that is going to complicate. I would really pause at that point and make sure you're bringing on the right people, because when the complexity, it doesn't double, it is exponentially more complex when you've got people on staff who are not billers in a law firm. I don't know how that relates to other industries, but as the owner of a law firm who has grown 1,000% over 4 years, If I could go back and do it again, that's where that not getting the right people on board at the right time really provided me with some learning opportunities.
Hmm.
3 lessons. That's one is when you're about to get complicated, get the right people. Um, that's the lesson. Um,
It's fine.
yeah, I think that's my
It's
big.
called growing smartly, right?
Yeah, yeah. I in 2022, I went from 1.4 million gross revenue to 3 million gross revenue, and thought things were easy peasy, and I've had to do some corrections because we grew too fast, and so
Sure,
grow smartly. That's good.
sure. Well, it's one, but that's one big major lesson, right? Because so many businesses focus on not failing, as we say, and also focus on trying to grow, 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 and don't really anticipate what is required um, for you to have when you actually attain the growth that you're going after.
Yeah, I mean, that's that. I can do 3 lessons, right? Because you're going to have a marketing program for a $2 million law firm, and now it's going to be a $4 million law firm. Okay,
Hmm.
do you know what you're doing? What are the
Hmm.
differences, and what do they work? And sales, what's a $4 million law firm going to do about sales? And then, legal production. How are you going to, go from, having 80 cases to 160 cases?
Yeah,
And then when you get complicated, then all these employment laws start coming into play,
yeah,
and human resources, and that's a
yeah.
whole other thing. So you
Right,
know
right.
um, yeah, and if you don't grow smartly, then all those areas are going to present challenges to you. Sometimes it'll all be simultaneously. So you want to, before you get complicated, you want to have somebody who's gonna you know be able to help you out in all those
Be able to
areas.
help you out. Yeah, yeah. No, I think that's spot on. I think that's spot on, Paul. Well, Paul, we've come to the end of this conversation. I'm sure you and I will have many more, but not on
Yeah,
camera.
yeah, that'll be good. That'll be good.
I look I look forward to those conversations. I feel like I've gotten to know you a little bit better.
Appreciate the time. This has been fun.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thanks for tuning into this episode of Kicking Ass and Taking Names. Remember, information is only as good as its application. So apply these insights and strategies and start making transformational changes to your business and life today. If you have not already, please subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and YouTube. Keep kicking ass and taking names.